All right, time to catch up with Derek Piper. Let's talk everything Illinois basketball. We will hit on, does Adam Miller return to Illinois? We'll hit on that possibility, the potential fit there. We will talk about the Nike Hoop Summit, what we saw from Dame Sar and David Mirkovic in a phenomenal game. We'll also talk about Casper Yakashon. It's no surprise is heading to the NBA and declared for the NBA draft. We'll talk about Will Riley's decision as well. But Derek Piper, how are you, buddy? How was the weekend?
It's pretty good. Can't complain. Nothing too crazy in terms of big news to have us jump on an emergency pod. So got to spend some time with the family. Got to catch the Nike Hoop Summit on Saturday night, which is a really good basketball game. And can't believe we're sitting here and Adam Miller is a topic of conversation. But that's the thing with the portal is the way you calibrate your mind on what's possible and what's not is totally different in this new era. So I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing good. I enjoyed the heck out of watching Rory McIlroy, the roller coaster that was in the Masters. So I'm still buzzing about that. And obviously a lot of football news that we'll get to on the podcast. Women's basketball had a couple of commits, but I did want to do a basketball update. And it works out because in this big football newsy day, Casper Yakashon is declaring for the NBA draft. It's not something I wanted to overlook because, Derek, he's going to become the first one and done NBA draft pick for Illinois. And we know the season did not end well for him. He did not play that well for the final month. But I was just telling you, if people need a reminder of Casper Yakashon and how good he was, there are YouTube highlight reels of his freshman season. And I just really focused before you came on here of rewatching his stretch really from mid-November when he kind of became aggressive, right? Early in the season, we're like, yeah, I'd like to see him on his more shots a little bit more. That Arkansas game hit clutch shot after clutch shot. The Missouri game, clutch shot after clutch shot. Obviously was such a huge piece of sparking the wins at Oregon, Washington, Indiana. But in that 10-game stretch, Derek, he averaged 20 points on, let's see here, 50% shooting, 46% from three, 5.1 rebounds, 4.8 assists. I am willing to say that is the best stretch of basketball we've ever seen from an Illinois freshman. And number two might have been Will Riley in the way he closed the season, which is why both those guys are probably going to be first round one and done draft picks. But if you need a reminder of how good Kasparas was at one point in the season and really how good his freshman season was as a whole, I encourage people to go back and watch the highlight reels from this season because I know there was some bad, but there was also a lot of great.
No, that's a great point. And you hope that people don't lose sight of that because he is a guy that's going to, as of right now, get picked in the lottery. That's still very much the expectation. And that's somebody that still has a really, really bright future. I mean, he's about to be 19 years old or however that ends up working out. Still a very young basketball player.
He's still 18.
He's still 18.
He turns 19 in late May.
Which is crazy. So a guy with a lot of ability. No, it didn't go perfect. And how many times do freshman seasons go perfect, especially when you are the star player on that given team or one of the focal points? So he was so crucial in the early surge in that season, right? And really setting the bar so high. We talked a lot about ceiling. We talked a lot about what Illinois could do. And a lot of that was baked into KJ being somebody that raises the bar and that pushes you forward. And that Arkansas game was tremendous. The Missouri shot down the stretch, the Washington saver where Trey throws in the backcourt and it's a tie ball game after you're up huge and KJ just comes down and it makes a play to put you back in front and did not play like a freshman. He really, like, those numbers speak it out. Like, he was, it's not hyperbole to say, he was one of the better guards in college basketball for the first 2 months of the season. Now, coming back from injury and not being able to clean up some things as far as efficiency, as far as turnovers, and, down the stretch didn't maybe have the same confidence either, but still a really good player. It's cool that you're watching either on USA Network or Peacock and they show KJ in the stands and they flash the graphic of Illinois' foreign players and influence. And like, that's something that can carry itself forward is if this guy, hits in the NBA, which he's capable of doing, that's going to be something that the Illinois brand gets carried along with him.
Yeah, listen, KJ's, there got to be some concerns about the NBA as he had more turnovers than assists during his last, 8, 9, 10 games there. So there's got to be some concerns there, but there's also the upside of what we saw early in the season. And ultimately, that is their decision of, is he, a guy that you'd take 5, 6, or 7, like we were talking about after that great stretch, or is he a guy they take towards the late lottery? But as you said, Derek, there's little doubt that with his size, his skill, his vision, he is a guy with a huge ceiling and the potential to be an NBA starter and maybe beyond that. So I keep seeing from certain fans, like, he's not ready. Well, none of these guys outside of Cooper Flag or Dylan Harper are really ready. And those guys are going to go through it. Maybe not Flag, but he's a freak. But like outside of Cooper, like in that stretch, Kasparas was up there with one, like, is he one of those dudes? Is he Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, and some of these levels of freshmen? And he just hit a wall. I will always wonder how much that wrist hurt him later in the season. I will always wonder if he just got tired because he's been playing so much basketball, like overseas before he got to Illinois, right? Underwood gave him like 2 weeks off when he got back because he had played so much basketball at that time. But regardless, he faced adversity. He's got to learn from that. But I thought he was a fantastic representative of Illinois. I really enjoyed talking with him. The 18 years old to come over here and play. I know he's been away from home for a while. A lot of those European kids that are maestros at 14, 15, 16, like he is, they get away from home and he'd been to different countries, but to be all the way over here, play at the highest level, this worked out for Kasparas. This worked out for Illinois because Illinois got back to the NCAA tournament as a 6 seed. They were a 20-plus win team. And then for Kasparas to go from maybe late first round to lottery pick here, Derek, that's huge for Illinois that you showed you can be that development place. And to be honest with you, for college basketball, that you see Kasparas comes over here, Nolan Traore and Hugo Gonzalez didn't. Their stock is still good. They're still first round draft picks, but it's not lottery anymore, most likely. Like, that's a good thing for Illinois to show Dame Sar, to show David Mirkovic, to show the next European stars that, hey, you come here, you can develop and do what the Gonzaga, Arizona guys have done and become first round draft picks. Illinois can be that type of school.
They definitely can. And like you said, you go back to when Kasparas even just came on the scene for Illinois. And once we were aware that Illinois was going after him, he was not a projected lottery guy. I'd have to go back and dig into the mock drafts, but I don't know that he was a bona fide, well-known first-round pick. But he elevated his stock so much based on the way he played late into that Spain U19 season with Barcelona, obviously, and then being able to go FIBA and the Adidas Next Gen where he tore it up as well too. So a lot of that was done on his end before he even ended up at Illinois to put himself in that mix. But then he went up another level because of the way he played in the first couple of months with Illinois and showed what the upside looks like and what the skill set is. And yeah, I mean, Illinois loves him. Like he's so easy to root for because he's a genuine, kind of just like innocent dude, just loves basketball and wants to, he's pretty selfless in terms of, competing for the team. Wasn't a sense of this guy is only here for the money or he doesn't care about the wins and losses or anything like that. Like that was definitely not the case. So I know that, Kasparas, I still think, in talking to people that eats at him that it ended the way that it did. And it sucks that that's the way it ultimately played out, is that it didn't have a better ending. And if you would have flipped the two, if he would have played like he did in November through early January at the very end of the season, kind of like the Will Riley, right, where he struggled early and then really hit his stride late, there'd be a lot different of a narrative and a approval rating and all of that around him. So that is something that just, it's the way it played out. But he is somebody that, yes, success story for him, helped Illinois continue on their streak of NCAA tournament bursts and, get into the second round, which I know it's not what they set out for, but yes. And it can play itself forward. It has. I mean, Dame Sar is a guy that literally played with KJ and same agency. And there is a very positive vibe still about Illinois and what they've done in the international scene. And KJ is boosting that, not hurting it, even though it didn't finish the way you hoped.
Yeah, KJ being on that broadcast the other night, them showing him, and then he's Instagramming pictures of him and Dame Sar with his agent, tweeting, putting that out there on social media. That's always a positive. So that's going to resonate. That's going to resonate a lot for Illinois. And they clearly, I don't want to say they're going all in, but they are pushing a lot of chips into the European thing, and it's working out very well for them. And they got 3 guys that'll be on the roster this upcoming season from Europe with the Ivisic twins and Mirkovic. So I think it's really working well. And Derek, I agree with you. I don't think a lot of people need to hear this, but maybe a few do. His give a crap factor was so high. Sometimes I think he got the best of him. That he cared so much about winning and producing and doing all those things that he got inside his own head and couldn't get out of that again. So I think that's what he's going to have to learn from this season. But he's been dealing with that his whole life, and he said, "This is what's made me great. Is I do care. I do take it personally when I don't play well." And, after the NCAA tournament, he felt like he failed his team, and his teammates didn't feel that way. But I think everybody saw like he was struggling, but his give a crap factor was always really high. So I personally will always look fondly on that season, because there were times, Derek, like I just remember sitting next to you, whether it was against Missouri or was against some of these games at State Farm Center. I'm like, that's NBA stuff. Like, that is NBA stuff he's doing right now.
It was, yeah. And he early in the year did not look like a freshman. He had composure that was beyond that, and had just a command for the game that obviously showed when he's at his best. He's in control, and he's able to do a lot out there on the court, make his teammates better, and obviously create opportunities for himself. Some of the step back threes that he made, I know sometimes they weren't the best of shots when they weren't going down, but just you saw the skill, you saw the work that he's put in to his game, and yeah, I think he was a competitor as well. I think he was somebody that was willing to grind it out. But yeah, he's hard on himself. Kylan's talked a lot about that. We wrote about it when we covered the tournament, and I know even Kylan got frustrated with him, just how hard he would wear struggles and losses and those type of things. But that's learning lessons for a young player. And within that, even baked into the equation with him, again, it was a real positive. And this program has been a very proud, successful program. It's about time they had a one and done, right? So if KJ's the guy, along with Will, of course, you're selfishly rooting that Will comes back if you're an Illini fan, but KJ helping to break that seal, like, that's a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, this would be the 3rd NBA draft pick for Brad Underwood. They had one over the previous 16, 17 years, Derek. So, yeah, that's a big improvement, and now you're adding more of them. Like the Ivisic twins at least have a chance to be drafted potentially in the 2nd round or something like that in the next year or two. But you add more talent like that and become an NBA factory, man. More NBA type talents want to play for you. That's for sure. KJ, I don't think we got to wait till May. Like, we know what his decision is. He's going pro. And by the way, Jonathan Gavoni had a great story on him. I had great quotes from him that Illinois will definitely use in recruiting with all these players. But Will Riley, I think most likely will stay in the NBA draft. We've had this conversation over and over again. But I do think this one will be intriguing towards May to see how he does at the NBA draft combine, shooting-wise, all that, what the buzz is out of him from all of that. And then ultimately on May 28th, when he's got to make the decision for that NCAA withdrawal date, whether he decides, hey, I can make a lot of money in college for another year, I'll go back for another year, see if I can be a lottery pick, or if I just want to make the leap, make millions of dollars, develop at the NBA, be a professional basketball player, KJ certainly will not be going through that.
I don't think so. No, it's a guy that's pretty well clear cut. The earning potential, obviously, you get drafted in the lottery, and you're talking about upward, $8+ 10+ million guaranteed money over that 2-year stretch, and it's a risk to go back based on what happened with your stock, what could happen injury wise. And not to say that another year, working with Fletch and working on his game, and even having a little bit of a mental reset, the grind of the end of that year, and coming back with that experience, that he couldn't then just be an All-American type of player. But yeah, I mean, he no one would tell you, even Illinois, even selfishly, wanting a talent like that back. Like, I don't think anyone with a straight face could say, KJ, yeah, you should probably go back to school. Like, it's all laid out there for him in terms of this is what he should jump at. And hopefully, he's able to catch on with the right team, and is also able to, hone in on things that he needs to clean up turnovers wise. Hopefully the confidence comes, and just, it'll be fun to giving Illinois fans more options where if an NBA team's on, and, that's been a fun dynamic, obviously, when Io get the local, but as far as when Terrence has gotten some minutes to flip them on, and now KJ will give them another reason to catch on with a certain team.
I'm looking from picks like 6 through 14 here. Brooklyn, Toronto. Now, this is all subject to the lottery, of course. Brooklyn, Toronto, San Antonio, Houston, Portland, Miami, Dallas, Chicago, Atlanta. Any places you'd really like to see him? I just don't want to see him going to Charlotte or Washington, but I think they're going to pick too high to go there.
Yeah.
San Antonio
would be fun.
Yeah, Portland I think would be good for him playing out there.
We both said that at the same time, yeah.
Yeah. Dallas, they might want another European player to kind of fill the void, but that'd be a big shoes to fill. I know he loves Luka, but I don't quite see him as that level of player. But I don't know if the Bulls would be the best fit, to be honest with you, because the guards that they have already, I think he needs more usage than that, and might take him a while to crack through the starting lineup. But San Antonio or Portland, I'd love to see him in one of those two places.
I like that. San Antonio's had the international flair before, and it's worked out really well. And just having another reason to watch a bunch of Wemby, and obviously De'Aaron Fox now in the mix there too. That'd be a lot of fun. And you'd imagine that that's going to be a team that, as they build, will be in postseason series, and that's something that could really present some cool moments if KJ's able to develop and be a guy that's in the rotation.
And I think he'd fit alongside maybe as a bench piece. Stefan Castle is the defender, guy who gets to the rim. KJ playing off him, I think would be really good as well. Guys, summer's not that far away, so make this your best season yet with nutritious 2-minute meals from Factor. Eating well has never been this easy. All you have to do, just heat up and enjoy, giving you more time to do what you want. Get outside instead of prepping and cooking indoors. Use Factor meals because they arrive fresh and ready to eat, perfect for any active lifestyle. And with 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. Choose from Calorie Smart, Keto, or my favorite Protein Plus, and many more options. Factor powers your day with satisfying breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. It's easy to savor more this spring. Factor meals pack in the flavor with none of the fuss. So get started today at factormeals.com/Illini50off and use code Illini50off. That's Illini50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code Illini50off at factormeals.com/Illini50off for 50% off plus free shipping. All right, we did see Mirkovic play. Great first quarter in the Nike Hoop Summit out there in Portland on Friday night, I believe it was, and 8 points in that first quarter. Didn't score the rest of the way, but I thought it was a really good showing for him in the early going. Robbie Hummel was raving about his passing for most of the game. Moved a little quicker than I thought he showed on some of the other highlights that I had seen from him, Derek. He was active defensively. I thought he gave a damn defensively, which was nice to see. And then we'll talk about Dame Sar, but what were your impressions of getting to see David Mirkovic a whole game live of him?
I liked him. Yeah, it was something that you mentioned there with the movement that stood out the most to me. I'd like you had seen the highlights. I even went, as I wrote up my what it means, went back and watched his standout game against Red Star in December, which really got a lot of notoriety. And Jonathan Gavoni tweeted out, which I'm sure a lot of people now have seen the highlight clips and just the evaluation of that game. But I wanted to see what what did the highlights miss? What else was in there? And he is a guy that in that game and having watched him more, just plays his butt off. Like he plays exceptionally hard, gives a lot of effort. I think that can make up for some of the athletic limitations that are there. But even in watching that game and then seeing him the other night, I thought he moved more. He just had more fluidity or just more range of motion than I thought. I thought he was going to be a little more stiff. You're playing in this game against a lot of high-level talents, a lot of high-level athletes, and that was something that I wondered what that would ultimately be. But he was a guy that showed a little bit more range of motion, showed a little bit more, again, fluid ability to cover some ground. So we'll see how that looks as he gets into college. And, of course, you get into the Big Ten, you are going to face a lot of high-end athleticism and depending on different matchups and strength, although – man, just watching a zoomed in version of him, the biceps, man. I don't know if he's got you beat, but he's up there. He's yoked. So, and then feel for the game, just versatility offensively. Those are all things that if you've watched highlights, you know what he can do. But that was a pretty positive showing for him.
I'm going to give you a secret here, guys. The key is the deltoids. The deltoids make the arms look better. Like Dwight Howard, best. What am I looking for? deltoids out there. Like he was so strong up there that made his arms look huge. Like that's the key. And yes, he's got it. He's got that frame. He's physical. One thing I've learned the last couple of years, Derek, is like this kind of notion that Europeans are all soft in basketball is not true. Like I find Tommy to be tough. He just needs to add strength. KJ was pretty tough at times. I thought mentally he struggled at times, but I thought physically he showed some toughness. I thought he guarded. Like again, they care about defense. It's just the guys we're talking about have a little bit of athletic limitation to them. But I do think he brings a lot of toughness. Mirkovic, like 6'8", 250 pounds, really long. He is active defensively, but he will get beat. Like straight line drives, he struggled a little bit with. He's not going to finish with authority around the rim like some of those long guys, but he's got skill. Like he's got some savvy around the rim about how he can finish. So I think playing against men over there at SC Derby is kind of taught him like what he has to do to finish around the rim. And he was 3 of 4 at the rim, misses only 3, got fouled on a 3-pointer, made 2 of his 3 free throws there. So I do like that he can push the ball in transition. Like he's a really good rebounder, had 3 in 15 minutes in this game, but career-wise, he's been a really strong rebounder, but he can take that rebound, take a couple dribbles, Derek, look up the court and deliver some really good passes. So that's an element that I'm excited about for a team that needs to get better in transition next year.
It's a great point. Yeah, it's something that he's done with SC Derby and watching back the clips of that as well. So he's comfortable enough with the ball in his hands to make some of those plays. I even thought about it in writing up the one it means. We'd have to see ultimately, it's I don't want to stamp this immediately, be like, hey, it's going to be some Danny Wolf, Vlad Golden, big on big ball screen possessions. But I could see a world where that would be worth trying with one of the Iviciches and see how that ultimately looks. But yeah, again, someone that is skilled very much offensively, has great vision, passing anticipation. And yeah, on a toughness standpoint, I wrote it into what it means. He's going up against the familiar name in Mike Dom, who played for the Illini TBT team a handful of years ago. Shout out to our buddy Michael Tulip. And on one of the plays inside, ends up bumping Dom, and he goes completely out of bounds. And I don't know that it was a foul, just kind of a hard blockout bump. And he goes flying, and more of a slender stretch big there, and also got into kind of a wrestling match on the ground for a loose ball too, and was unwilling to let go of the grasp even after the whistle. So I think he's got some stuff to him, as you'd say.
Closer to 14 minutes a game or 24 minutes a game for Mirkovic next year?
It's a great question. I think it's probably closer to 24, right?
I think like the way I'm thinking about this is like, I think he's a 20-minute a game guy. I don't think he comes in here and is like, he'll play 10 to 12 minutes. No, I think I would say him and Z, like I might side with Mirkovic a little bit just because of how he fits. I think he can move a little bit better to guard fours, right? And rebounds really, really well. So I am fascinated by the Twin Towers matchup. But the way I look at it, like I just think Mirkovic fits next to Tommy easily defensively, a lot more defensively, and offensively it does too, because he can stretch the floor. But that high-low, I feel a lot better getting Mirkovic on the low post than, to be honest with you, either of the Ivicic twins right now.
For sure. No, I think he is a really ideal fit with those guys because of his strength inside, and you can even hunt some booty ball stuff if you can get him into some switches and some really ideal matchups to play out of the post, mid-post ISOs. And because of his passing, he can find certain guys if there's cutting, if there's double teams that he's going to command. And it is going to be something to monitor because obviously you're reminded, although with Will early on in the year, obviously KJ late in the year, you're still talking about a guy who's 19 years old going to new level. Like, is there going to be some rocky moments? Is he going to be, how's his confidence in through that? I will say a difference is the strength will not be something that I think will overwhelm him or anything like that. But that's why, as we talked about before, Ben Hamrickhouse as a potential
he could be having a big influence on whether I go closer to 14, because I could see it more like 16 to 18 minutes if Hamrickhouse does return.
If he does return, and then we'll see as far as the consistency goes with him. Is he a guy that finds the 3 ball and becomes a knockdown shooter? Obviously, that would be the ideal scenario. Maybe that impacts that number more. Or if he's somebody that is still inconsistent, then I think that would lean more, obviously, to Mirkovic and more rebounding in that standpoint. So there's options. That's one thing you like, especially if Ben does come back. But I'm with you. I think they added a piece like that to really try to impact them this year, not just to be a kind of a reserve role and see where he goes.
What'd you think of Dame Sar? 6'9" with what or 6'8" with like a 7-foot wingspan, ridiculous athlete. Showed a little bit more strength getting to the rim than I thought was there, Derek. You can see why his stock is rising. And after that game, I'm more like, is the NBA more of a threat than any other college team for Dame Sar? What'd you see from him?
Like you said, the physical talent's really impressive. You saw the open court ability, the way that he can get to the basket and burst, and and then defensively, I know that the matchup on AJ DeBonsta early, he got kind of bullied on that one of those early plays for a foul. That's AJ DeBonsta. He's a freak. He's a monster. So, and Dame does need to get stronger. That's something that he could really use that year. I think that the NBA would even like to see him maybe a year from now, after a year in college of physical development and continuing to refine some things in his game. But you understand why there is more NBA buzz now than there would have been a couple months ago. And it does sound like there is the real potential for him to try that, to try to make a push into the NBA draft feedback and trying to go through the process and see where it lands. So I think there were some things. Again, strength-wise is something that still stands out at times. I think for an on-ball playmaker, could he still clean up the handle a little bit and some just things that he can refine. He's still at times like he's a little raw in this or that, but on the whole, he is, very, very talented and is that two-way playmaking wing that obviously Illinois has been very involved and very attracted to. We'll see what Duke decides to do as far as their involvement and how hard they want to push and other options as well. But I thought he was impressive.
Yeah, he'll turn 19 in June. So, he's almost a full year older than KJ was coming in. I mean, they're basically the same age, a couple weeks apart of their birthday here. So I do think he's got the chance to add some strength here right away. Like, give him 6 months with Fletch, and I think he could gain a lot of strength, or any college program, if it's Duke, Illinois, whatever it is. I think he would have a lot coming back. I mean, if he's a first-round draft pick, you go, and maybe team will take a flyer on a guy like him who's playing in the EuroLeague right now, right? Or we'll see, because I know Bart's a little upset with him, but yes, he was playing in the EuroLeague alongside Jabari Parker and Tomas Satoransky, some NBA vets, like 30-something-year-old guys, and Dame Sar is starting next to them. It's the second-best league in the world. And he is looking the part, averaging like 13 points a game the last 5 games, shooting it really well. I think his stroke looks good, Derek. He shoots free throws well. But again, like his finishing ability, you can see some of those Euro steps, finish at the rim. I'm only using this name just to give people an example, but like the Giannis kind of drive to the rim finish with just that length, like he's got those things that I think at the college level, I go, man, who's stopping that? So obviously there's a lot of youth. There's things he's got to go through, but the ceiling for him is way higher than I thought it was 2 or 3 months ago when we started talking about him. I thought he was just kind of this raw, long, athletic guy that Illinois gets in here and develops. I think he'd be one of the better players, one of the better freshmen in the Big Ten, to be honest with you. So to get him, I think would be a huge addition for Illinois if they're able to get him. And Derek, I know they met with him, right? The staff met with him and his agent out there in Portland. So we'll see where this thing goes. It's kind of been hot and cold here, and we'll see where it goes down the stretch. But Illinois has obviously been putting a lot in here, and they have the connections or relationships here that I think other schools would probably be pretty jealous of.
I would think so. Yeah, and it doesn't hurt that KJ was out there. He's a good buddy, a former teammate, and I'm assuming he's going to say really good things about his experience at Illinois and the way that they just supported him, worked with him, and that was something that he really enjoyed and gained a lot of benefit out of. So I think that's something in their corner. The fact that the Wasserman connections, the agency that's very prevalent overseas and represented by he's represented by an agent from Wasserman. So is KJ, and so is Jeff Alexander as well. So you got that connection, and like you said, they just put in a ton of time. They've made their pitch multiple times in this thing, and I just think that they're very well in tune with where that situation is at. Although it has been I think it's more of a fluid one now than it was a month ago because of the other options out there. But I think he's pretty interested in trying his hand at the NBA based on the way it sounds. I think he's been pretty interested by the the involvement of Duke coming into the fold, and just what that option would look like. I think having him be seen the way he was, people that may not be as familiar or will want to check in on him as far as other players around college basketball watching the Nike Hoop Summit, that could increase a bidding war, really. I mean, just to say it flat out, potentially, as far as that goes. I think right now he's probably a $2 million type of player, and maybe it goes beyond that if it really boils down to it. So I think right now there's not a ton of certainty on when a decision is going to come or what exactly he's going to do next. But I do think Illinois has remained in a pretty good position and will be obviously a contender. But if they had their preference, I think they would like this to be done sooner. And actually, there were different points over the previous 2 months that it looked like maybe it was going to be.
You know who he reminds me of as a prospect, and I really try to caution. I'm just saying shades of this guy. He's got shades of like an Andrew Wiggins, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like a 6'8", 190 potential two-way guy that can make an impact on both ends. I actually think he could probably create a little bit more. Wiggins, just a freak athlete, and he was a consensus All-American as a freshman and a number 1 draft pick. So I don't want to say that that's going to be, but like the shades of the game that's what he reminds me of. And you wonder if he was an 18-year-old American where he would rank on some of these. I think he'd be a 5-star. Like I think that's the level of prospect he is.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. There are some NBA people that Illinois has been in contact with that they feel like one season in college plays up to his potential, could be a top 10 pick or thereabouts, a lottery type of guy after a year in college. And even there's been some buzz that even if he tries his hand now, there might even be an upside of working his way into the first round. So, I think that's completely fair as far as 5-star. I think, Illinois views him like that, and the way he's played recently definitely, leads you to believe that too.
That's why I want to frame the conversation like that, because that's the type of talent that we're talking about here. And Derek throws out that figure, that salary figure. That's why, because the ceiling is so high. So if they got Dame Sar, I'm not thinking, oh, this guy will be my 6th man next year. No, I'm plugging him into my starting lineup, and he could be one of the better players and really be the kind of player they need, Derek, that raises the ceiling. Because I talked about this with Trotter on Friday. I like the floor they have set. The front court is really big and skilled with a lot of guys that could play at the next level. Kylan Boswell returning is a very good two-way guard in the Big Ten, one of the better guards in the Big Ten, could be one of the better guards in the country. Ty Rodgers, you bring back is a veteran guy. We'll talk about another piece you could bring in here, but they need now that ceiling lifter, and Dame Sar could be a part of that. Another guy who could be a part of that is Ian Jackson, North Carolina transfer, who we talked about, I think, last week as a possibility. He visited St. John's. Maybe news could happen on that very soon, because St. John's was thought to be the leader there, Derek. But anything new on Ian Jackson, the pursuit there?
I know I'm still trying to see what that looks like in terms of a potential visit or trying to make a potential, really, really big push. And he's got a high price tag. I mentioned Dame's probably in the $2 million range as of right now, which could push higher. But it's been reported that Ian's probably a $3 million type of acquisition. So you talk about the ceiling pushers. They're gonna push you to dig really deep into that bag of NIL and potential rev share as well. So visited USC and then St. John's, and Illinois really likes the athleticism, explosion, maybe a big year 1 to year 2 jump in terms of consistency. His highs were really high this past year at North Carolina, but just wasn't able to sustain it, on going forward. So Orlando's tied in there, as we talked about before. I think they're just trying to see if they can get a window to shoot their shot, and that, he's a guy that they would love to be able to try on. I think it's interesting as you try to, kind of align different timelines. And I don't think Illinois ideally wants to get caught waiting too long to get this stud piece, to get this ceiling raised. I think they want to have some peace of mind on that, or just something solid on that sooner rather than later if they can.
That was the point I was going to bring up next, Eric, is you kind of have 2 timelines here where you'd really like to lock somebody up, especially before the house settlement is closed, because then you can splurge your NIL and that doesn't count towards your revenue share. You kind of got the two pots that you can work with in this cycle. So you'd love to get one of those. And then, we got revenue share, and maybe we can get a second ace, your Danny Rojas and your Jamie Tart next to each other. You'd love to have both of those, but you're probably waiting until May for Will Riley's decision ultimately, and Dame Sar could take it up till then. So that's what's fascinating here, is whether it's trying to close on Dame Sar before he makes an NBA draft decision and potentially having to buy that out, right? that kind of thought process, or landing an Ian Jackson or whoever could be a stud wing out there. You need that piece. Like, if you want to be a contender in the Big Ten and nationally, as Brad Underwood has set the standard to be, you need to lock one of those down. And going all in on Will Riley or Dame Sar, and what if both of those declare for the NBA draft? That's playing a big gamble there.
It is, yeah, it'd be risky for sure. Not that you'd still have a lot of money, seemingly a great opportunity, and there could be some other options beyond those guys. We'd see what a Cedric Coward would ultimately do. Jameer Watkins from Florida State. Coward's maybe another one of those guys, based on at least what we've heard is in terms of how much Illinois likes him. Would you try to see if he'd do a Yaxel Lendenborg of decide where you'd go to college before you decide whether you're staying in the draft? And right now, I don't think Coward is projected in a spot that would push him to stay in. So maybe that's a little bit safer than Lendenborg, who has the arrow moving up, maybe even potentially into the first round on the Michigan side of things. So, yeah, I think also you're trying to get a gauge. We're in this final, there's just more than a week left of the portal being open. There's been buzz about certain guys who might go in, but now it's kind of like, are you going in or you're not? And you're not having those conversations with those players, but agents have, in a lot of senses, put feelers out. Hey, this guy's thinking about the portal. What would you think of him, type of thing? And that buzz gets circulated around. So I think from Illinois' standpoint, and probably a lot of programs out there, for guys they've caught wind of, are you going in, and is this going to be a real option, or you're not going to? And maybe it's not even a word of that. You're just going to know a deadline here in about a week of, this is the pool of players that are available, and you got to work and operate from there. So, no, I think you make a good point about Dame in terms of, can you try to push that timeline up with a push? And I think Ian Jackson too, it's expected that he will not take all that long, but you want to see maybe if you can get a visit in there and try to make your push.
So I'm thinking with Dame is such a dynamic talent here, but like my thing is, Illinois will get somebody. Like, I am not concerned. I wrote it this weekend. Like, Illinois, somebody is going to take Illinois' money, Derek, and this huge role of usage on the wing, right? Somebody will take. So I'm not nervous about that. It's just figuring out the timeline and who it is, right? And how much that does lift the ceiling of this team. Because I am confident this staff, with what they have to sell, the money that they have, is going to get somebody that is good, right? That is good on the wing. How good? When do they land them? Can they land two of them? Those are the questions that lead to all of this anxiety, because Illinois is going to be good next year. I have no doubt about that. It's about how good can they be based on what happens over the next month and a half or 2 months.
No, I agree with all that for sure. And it's even been framed to us at one point not too long ago, is that this sensitivity with the settlement, like you said earlier, it could be a situation if you land one on the Sooner front that maybe you have a lot more, and I don't know how much money Illinois has right now, but or just
if you go to the donors with Dame Sar already on board and say, hey, Will Riley's thinking about coming back, you got to make it possible.
Right.
You got to find a way to get done.
No, and I think whatever transpires, I would imagine Illinois gives themselves Will Riley flexibility at the very end of this thing. I'd be surprised if they didn't. So whether that's Will, if Sar lines to the same timeline, then that could be another option later. Again, there'd be urgency maybe to get it done sooner if you could. But another piece that maybe we don't even know about at that time is possible. But yes, I think that if you can get it on the Sooner front, not only are you're giving yourself some insurance, or just not running the same kind of risk later into May, but maybe even allowing yourself more flexibility from a money standpoint to make two big splashes instead of one.
All right, Derek. I heard Jim Nantz say all week, hello, friends. Do we need to say hello, old friend? Adam Miller, reportedly in the
Maybe.
transfer portal. And he's now been in the transfer portal 3 times, something like that. But Adam Miller left 4 years ago, and it was a pretty big shock at the time, because it felt like, oh, this is going to be Iowa DeSumu's, successor. We thought Iowa would go pro, obviously, after that year, and he did. And it's like, oh, Adam Miller takes the mantle. Different guards, obviously, and they've turned out that way. But he transfers after just 1 year. And, behind the scenes, we've heard all along, like, did the kid really want to do it? Did people around him force him into that? Went to LSU, obviously Arizona State the last couple of years. Been a good starter. I mean, he's started all but 4 games of his career in college and been a double-digit scorer for his career. Had 43% for shooting from 3 last year. But you've always heard, like, Adam really enjoyed his year, and maybe the time away from Illinois even made him appreciate it more. So if you're Illinois, Adam Miller, how much sense does he make for them?
I think he makes a good deal of sense. When this first came across my radar, I was like, no way. This isn't going to be something that is going to align, just based on the way that, when you have a breakup, usually you don't circle back. That's something that usually goes the way as it plays out. But Michi Johnson tells us that, hey, you can go there and back. Ohio State to South Carolina twice, 2 round trips. So I just think that, in terms of what Illinois needs on the perimeter, we've talked about just the emphasis maybe to get older, and he's 23 years old, would turn 24 in January. He's a guy that shoots the 3. He shot at career best this past year, 43%. Great catch and shoot numbers. They could use that. They have shooting in the front court for sure, but obviously next to Kylan Boswell, that would be very valuable. And defense, he's a 3-and-D guard. He's a guy that has shown a big willingness to defend, was really effective as a supporting cast defender that first year at Illinois. And even his defensive metrics on a bad Arizona State team are pretty good this past year, both looking at Synergy and Evan Maya. So I think that from that standpoint, in terms of the boxes that he checks, it makes sense for Illinois. Now, I think the role is interesting. I don't think he'd be sold on, hey, come in and be our star player. I don't necessarily think that Adam's looking for that, at least based on what I've heard to this point. I think he's very interested in trying to win in his last season in college basketball. Yes, he wants to play. I mean, he's made 115 career starts, at 3 high major stops. So I think, and he played well enough to be in a position to do that. So, although I think some people get caught up, and admittedly we even do sometimes, in trying to forecast starting 5s and all those type of things. I think Illinois would tell him, come in and be a piece, come in and be a guy that can help us win, that will get minutes for sure. How it shakes out, are we going to guarantee you 30 minutes a night and start every game? Probably not. But as of right now, we have holes to fill in the backcourt, and you can come home from Peoria, Illinois Mr. Basketball. And so I do think it makes sense in thinking about it more. And it does sound like Illinois thinks it makes sense.
Yeah. When you first sent this, I immediately was excited. which might draw the ire of some people. But, when there's a breakup, usually there's like bad mouthing about each side, right? You never heard that from Illinois about Adam Miller, the kid, right? You never heard that. And as a media guy, I love Adam Miller because he's a great talker. I thought he was a really good player as a freshman. So I'm excited about that possibility. But he does check a lot of boxes of what they need in the 5th starter or the 6th guy, right? Guy right off the bench. And I do think he'd play, 18 to 25 minutes if he were here. They need somebody who can shoot. And while his first 3 years shot about 32%, I think we all know he can shoot. And I think he'd shoot even better on this kind of team with the spacing he's going to have, the looks he's going to have from the corner, all of that. He hit 43% of his threes, was 99th percentile in catch and shoot or something like that last year. Yes, they need that piece, but he also guards. They need some people who defend, and he cares on that end, Derek. He's big, he's strong, he's old. And you talk about getting old. That's what we were talking about. They need older pieces around a Vicic, around Kylan Boswell. Boswell's going to be one of the youngest guys in this really rotation, right? At 20 years old, he's going to be a senior. The Vicic boys are going to be 22. Ty Rodgers is 21, 22. If Ben Humrickhouse comes back, I don't know how old Ben is. He 28 now? Mirkovich is 19, obviously, but if you can get old like that, that's what they need. And if he does come back, Derek, I think that would be saying he's bought into being a role on a winning team. The last 3 years he's been healthy, he's not made the NCAA tournament. Right? He was on an NCAA tournament. He was on a Big Ten tournament champion. Should have been a regular season champion too, and number 1 seed. And you wonder what his career would have been if he would have stayed here and continued to grow in this program. He's also a guy who knows Brad Underwood and this culture and what it was at the beginning of all of this, because he was getting recruited as all of this was turned around. He was part of a team that broke through. And one thing I texted you about earlier today that I was thinking about, like the fact that Adam would return after playing for 2 other programs, the fact that Ty Rodgers would return after redshirting, that must say something about Brad Underwood's program. I don't know what it is. I can't wait to ask them, but like it says something that they want to be a part of it still, despite being away from it, at least for a little bit, or not playing in it for a little bit. So I'm all about this, especially if the price is affordable, which I would think it would have to be. A guy who's, 6th season role player at this level, but I think he could be a really, really good role player and one who fits these other pieces.
No doubt. No, that's a really good point about Adam and obviously Ty. And I think that I'd be interested to ask Coleman Hawkins what he thinks about Brad Underwood and the program. Not that he left with any kind of feeling of stink or that there was a real divide there, but I think he probably appreciates it more after spending a year at Kansas State. And Lou Goody maybe appreciates it more after a year in Indiana with Mike Woodson. But yeah, I think that to your point, when you have somebody leave the fold, there is a very easy way to say, oh, well, this player wasn't that, or they did this, or this happened behind the scenes that nobody knew about. And that is a reason why we should be glad that, divorce is good, to use the Lovie Smith line. But no one around the program would say a bad word about Adam Miller. They really wouldn't. They really liked him, and they just felt like it was unfortunate, just the voices in his ear that told him he should look elsewhere. And there was just, at that time, he came out of high school with such a high expectation level. Wasn't an McDonald's All-American, but he was in that IO type of range of, borderline 5-star and thought to be maybe the next Io DeSumo type coming out of the state. So we see that he hasn't profiled as a future NBA guard or anything like that. He's now a college basketball journeyman, but a guy that has a good amount of value, because by the time postseason play comes around for next season, he'll be 24 years old and will have played, darn near 150 games or whatever it is in college basketball. Like that plays, that's good. You could use something like that. And a guy that, has some investment already in Illinois, and it will matter to him, I think, to put Illinois back on if he does decide to do that, back on the chest. I think that would matter. And it's not the same story as Kylan Boswell, but Kylan has had a really nice come home story. And I think that Adam could tap into that as well.
It's a great point, Derek. Peoria kid, right? He played at Morgan Park, but he's a Peoria kid. Came home to play the first year. Looked like the future was so bright. First game, 28 points. It was against North Carolina A&T or something like that. In that 3-game stretch of multi-team event in the COVID year. And it's like, oh my goodness, this guy could be unbelievable. What is happening here with Illinois basketball? And then he laughed and was like, man, it felt like that was going to be a different story. And obviously it has been. He's been gone for 4 years now at 2 different schools. But for a kid like that probably is not an NBA. He's not an NBA player, right? To come home, be a part of winning again, to have a legacy here. And what I always think about at this time of year is these guys who do play, like, where does Trey White, and I like Trey White a lot, where does he go back? Like, if he wants to go see a college basketball, like, where does he go? Is it USC? Is it
going to be Kansas?
Is it Kansas? If Adam Miller comes back here and plays another year and is part of winning, he can come back to Illinois. Like Coleman Hawkins can come back to Illinois. I think Luke Goody could. I think Luke might not go to Indiana because he's probably beloved there as well. But like a guy like, Sky Clark ain't coming back here. Jaden Epps ain't coming back here. If Adam Miller came back here, had a nice year, helps winning, I think this would be his home. I think this would be his alma mater, even though he's probably got a couple of degrees or could have a couple of degrees by then. Like, I think this could be home for him. And I think that is important. I think it is important to have those connections, and to be reconnected to this staff, I think could be a really good thing. It's a great story that we think about writing, but I just think about in his life, like, if he wants to go back to Illinois, because this is where he's from. Like, he can do that. And I think there's got to be some value to that still.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a good point. I think it'd be beneficial for Illinois to have the Peoria thing. It'd be fun for the nostalgia for the fans. Let's be honest, Peoria hasn't been churning out the same kind of talent that it's known to have done, through the years, at least here recently. Not to say that it can't obviously happen again, but
you'd have Adam Miller and Leah Guyton now playing in the orange and blue. So that's something after DeMonte played. So you have at least the people who are doing it, right? Outside of Cooper Hatch in Iowa.
Yeah, and I think it's fun to think about. Yeah, even in his post career, if he does come here and have a really nice season and is part of a winning team, that he can do kind of not to say he will have the same type of legacy or pull as like a Sergio McClain who comes back to the games or fill in the blank of those guys who are still kind of still local enough to be around the program, but it would be a nice benefit for him to have that home. And again, I think he's really well liked within the program. And I think he could, for those that are skeptical or have still bad feelings about the way it ended the first time in terms of in the fan base or anybody like that, like this could be an opportunity to really change that. Although it does, in taking the temperature of it on our message board, I think there are a lot of people that are on board with this, that would, embrace him back and would be excited for it.
Yeah, I don't think he burned a lot of bridges. The kid didn't. That's for sure. Do want to put this out there. We recorded this, so this is happening while we're recording. Jonathan Gavoni reports Will Riley has declared for the NBA draft, calls him a projected first-round draft pick. Said he had several eye-opening performances demonstrating his credentials as a lottery caliber talent for Illinois, particularly in the second half of the season. Riley quoted, "I learned a lot through the season. I faced a lot of adversity, which helped me. When I was younger, I had no idea what it was like on the American basketball scene. That transition from Canada was good for me. Biggest difference was the physicality. I put on 22 pounds before the start of the season. NBA teams saw my potential as a ball handler and creator, my IQ, my ability to make reads. These are things you can't teach. I got adjusted midway through the season." So he says he's working on his body in the next few months, consuming a lot of calories in the gym, 5 a.m. So that's the extent to it. No surprise here that he's declaring for the draft. I expect he will stay in, Derek. I think Jonathan Gavoni really likes him and he's tied in. So I would most likely think he's going to stay in, but I just think he's a little bit more interesting to monitor than KJ.
No, for sure. No doubt about that. That's something that we're going to have to see where the feedback goes with him. But obviously ESPN with Gavoni and Jeremy Wu have been very high on him. And that's certainly, as far as mock drafts go, got to be, very much driven by the intel via front offices and scouts. And as far as that goes, and it makes complete sense based on the way that he played from the start of February on through the rest of the year. He looked like, I tweeted it, during multiple games, there's your first round pick, Will Riley, and enjoy him while you can. And we've talked about him numerous times throughout this offseason. And I've very much consistently landed on, I think he's going to go to the draft and stay in because I think that feedback is good enough. But I think the point that he makes about the on-ball playmaking, I think that is maybe the chip that pushes it over the top for the NBA this year, because of his ability to show that he is not just a spot up type of guy at 6'8" who's a wing. Like he's a guy that can legit, play offense through and make some passes and make some good decisions. So yes, the body could use another year of development before someone comments and say that, hey, he needs that, because he could. Absolutely. There could be great value in terms of his stock, in terms of his body. And that's something that he could evaluate. So you've talked about it. Like, I do think it's a positive from Illinois side. They viewed it as one. The lines of communication have been open, but I do just think that right now, just the gauge is, I think there's good enough feedback on the front end that if I were to guess today, I think he stays in.
Yeah, and like KJ, if he gets drafted in the lottery, I don't think there's much G League time there, right? If Riley's in the back end of the first round, probably going to be some G League time for this kid. Obviously, the athleticism thing is something to concern about. I get a little bit worried. Like, he's tall. He's not as long, though. I think he's got a negative wingspan. So that's something I do get a little bit concerned about with him, but he's still bigger than a lot of guards. He's got to get better defensively, strength-wise. That's certainly got to happen. But he is such an enticing playmaker, as you said, Derek. And I think that is the key to it all. Like, you started to say it because we thought about him as a shot maker, and you started thinking about Will Riley, this 5-star prospect. But you had mentioned, man, his playmaking is what really intrigues me, because you pair the shooting with the distributing, the ability to get to the rim and create his own shot that way. That's what's really intriguing with him for NBA scouts. And again, they're not drafting these guys to come into their rotation immediately, especially when you're in the late teens, early 20s. You're getting a lottery ticket, and you're seeing what these guys can be at age 23 through 28.
No doubt. Yeah, that is something that needs to be reminded of, because we focus so much on production and being in the college hoops side of it, that there are some prospects in Illinois in terms of the guys they've sent to the draft. You've had, and you hope that Will Riley's not going to be, and he wouldn't be in terms of like where this guy come from head scratcher, but guys who might get picked in front of, or did get picked in front of Io, but in front of Terrence, like those guys, have not done nearly half of what they have in college basketball, but it's upside. It's projecting. It's trying to be able to tap into who they're going to be. Maybe not even next year or the year after that, but Will, again, the end of the season showed people a lot. I think just that he is maybe another real step physically away from being a guy that can play in that league. So I'll share this nugget. I know that there's a lot of information sharing, and not that, we've heard, some team likes this guy and then ultimately they don't take him. But I had heard a GM told Illinois recently that a GM that's projected to pick in the middle of the first round, that they really like Will. They just wonder if he's going to be there. So that's something that is out there. Again, we'll see what the testing looks like, what the combine ends up drawing, but I do think there are high opinions of him.
Yeah, and I thought Gavoni is as tied in as there is with the NBA draft and all these front offices, and he told me in December. This is really before Will really took off, right? Like he was playing well at that point, but he really took off after that Duke game. And he said, "I'd be shocked. I'd be surprised if he comes back." So I mean, it seemed pretty clear I'd be a first round pick. It's just guys outside that realm, right? Like the CBS Kyle Boone has him 33. The Athletics Jonathan Gavoni. Yes, he lives in Australia, but I really appreciate him as an evaluator. Maybe not as is tied into Gavoni because he's not over here talking to these guys every day. But he has him number 49, I believe. So just it opens up the realm, but most likely Will Riley will be a first-round draft pick, and 2 first-round draft picks, Derek. You remember the last time Illinois had 2 first-round draft picks in the same year?
Did they have it in 2004, Luther Head and Darren Williams?
2005, Luther Head and Darren Williams. The last time they had 3 first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
3 first-round draft picks in 2 years. Do you know that?
Oh, man. I don't. 80s?
It was the 2000s, I believe, or back-to-back years they had first-round draft picks. It was Brian Cook and Frank Williams. It was the last time they had back-to-back years with not 3 first-round draft picks. Sorry. But yeah, it was the last time Illinois had back-to-back years. So Terrence Shannon and now Casper Yakashon and Will Riley. It's been a while. So even if these guys are gone and Will Riley's gone, this is all positive for an Illinois program that just has not had enough NBA players of late. Arch went the same year as Frank Williams, by the way. So yeah, it's been since those early 2000s where we had Frank, Arch, Cook, Darren, Luther, James Augustine, D. Brown, all go within like a 4-year span that Illinois has had this kind of NBA run. Now they've had Io, Terrence, now Kasparas and Will, and you hope more guys coming through.
It's so important for recruiting top-level talent because they want to see the path. They want to see guys that their stock was improved. They were developed well enough. You hear it all the time when we do these interviews. And I know that obviously Brett Bielema has a very proven track record of getting guys ready for the next level. So that's important to the next generation of talent that are looking to see the right program for them to help them go on that same path. And now Brad Underwood's able to have that same kind of sell. And that's something that is invaluable. And obviously NIL and rev share, as far as the future goes, it is very much business decisions on the front end in terms of how much can I make in college immediately as well. Not only money-making potential in the pros as I get there, but that's something that high-end type of talent I've always been talking about, even prior. And it might have been a reason that Illinois didn't get some of the guys in the past, is they just didn't have that track record. So being able to get there is a big deal.
I know somebody out there's thinking we only won one NCAA tournament with these guys. The whole point now is, can you make this long-term, right? Like, can you make it long-term more of a success because you get more of these guys? And let's be honest, they were just too young. They were too young this year. Now you add pieces that bend together, some veterans, and you hope to build off this NBA draft success. Illinois has not had 3 first-round draft picks in a 2-year span. Found it, Derek. Since Nick Anderson, Kenny Battle, and Kendall Gill in 89 and 90.
That's a long time. Those are some really good names, but yeah, that is a very, very long time. And those guys also, and again, I'm not trying to convince anyone of trying to move your take on this season as far as, it was always about getting the second round or anything like that. But those guys were late in the cycle. They helped you get to that point. Like, what if KJ, after Yegor Demon, goes somewhere else? By the way, KJ had a better season than Yegor Demon, is currently projected higher than Yegor. What if KJ's not there for the taking? What if Will Riley isn't going to reclass? Like, this would have been a lot different of a story for Illinois ultimately. And I think that should at least be appreciated, along with the moments through the year as well. We're just, Will at his best, really fun player to watch. Xavier game was awesome. And KJ, as we outlined earlier, had his fair share of moments as well.
Yeah. And it's just, you wish they did it more at the same time. That's it. But that's freshman. That's freshman for and what you have to deal with. I mean, Calipari dealt with it all those times. So that's why it's important to put it all together. All right, Derek. This is a little newsier than I thought it was going to be today, but it was good timing with all of this. So appreciate the time as always, man.
Yep. We'll catch up soon. I'm sure something will pop and we'll get us back on here.
Yeah, maybe an emergency pod later in the week. We appreciate you listening to the Illini Inquirer Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notifications bell. If you're listening on the podcast, give us a follow, rating, review wherever you get your podcasts. We'll have plenty more at IlliniInquirer.com. But for Derek Piper, I'm Jeremy Werner. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer Podcast.